January 26, 2000, Pinecrest, Florida. It's early, too early for anyone to be awake. Federal agents from the Department of Defense, NASA investigators, local police. They've been building this case for months. Inside this house is someone who broke into America's most sensitive defense networks, who intercepted over 3,000 classified military emails, who walked into NASA and walked out with the source code keeping astronauts alive on the International Space Station. No accomplices, no special equipment, no criminal record. He was 16 years old. Jonathan Joseph James, born December 12, 1983, in Pinecrest, an affluent suburb just south of Miami. His father was a computer programmer, and there was a computer in the house before most families had one. School bored him. Computers didn't. When his parents installed parental controls to limit his screen time, Jonathan didn't argue. He studied the restriction until he understood exactly how it worked, and then he dismantled it. He was 10 years old. As the web exploded in the mid-90s, Jonathan found his world in online hacker forums and IRC channels, spaces where teenagers traded knowledge about vulnerabilities and the barely secured early architecture of the internet. He named himself C0 Mraid, with a zero in place of the O. Not a villain name, a comrade, a collaborator in curiosity. By 15, he had already tested his skills against Bell South and his school district's network. Small targets, mostly unnoticed. Not done for money, not done for damage. Done because he needed to know if he could. In the summer of 1999, he got his answer. June 1999. Jonathan is 15. He's scanning government networks, looking for servers running unpatched Red Hat Linux. In 1999, this is not the work of a prodigy. It's the work of someone patient. Federal cybersecurity at this moment is, diplomatically speaking, a mess. Credentials are sent in plain text. Intrusion detection barely exists. The walls look strong from the outside. The windows are open. He finds a vulnerable server at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. He's in within minutes. He moves through 13 computers, and then, buried in one of those systems, he finds something unexpected. Source code. Not just any code, but NASA wasn't the most dangerous place he would go that summer. This was the software managing the International Space Station's life support systems, specifically the modules controlling temperature and humidity inside the living quarters. The code that kept the air inside the station breathable for the astronauts sleeping aboard it. NASA would later value that software at $1.7 million. Jonathan downloaded it. In an interview years later, he described the code as looking unfinished and unimpressive. Junk, not worth millions. But that wasn't the point. The point was that a 15-year-old in a Florida bedroom had just walked into the world's most advanced space agency and read the software keeping people alive in orbit. Between August and October of 1999, Jonathan turned his attention to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA. This is not a minor department. The DTRA is the arm of the United States Department of Defense responsible for analyzing threats from nuclear, biological, chemical, and conventional weapons. Its mission? To reduce existential risks to the United States. Jonathan found a vulnerability in a DTRA router in Dulles. He used it to install two things. First, a back door, a hidden entry point he could use whenever he chose. Second, A sniffer, a program that sat silently in the server and recorded every piece of data passing through it. Usernames, passwords, internal communications, all of it. Over the following weeks, he intercepted more than 3,300 emails between DTRA employees. He collected 19 usernames and passwords, at least 10 belonging to personnel on official military computers. Using those credentials, he escalated his access. One stolen key opening the next door, and the next, until he had effectively walked through the digital equivalent of a secured military compound. For weeks, he was reading the Pentagon's mail, and nobody noticed. In the summer of 1999, a security analyst at NASA noticed something that didn't belong. Access patterns from no authorized user, data that had moved when it shouldn't have. NASA shut its affected systems down completely for 21 consecutive days while investigators determined the full scope of the breach. The shutdown cost $41,000 in investigation and recovery. Then they called the FBI. The trail led, with surprising speed, to Jonathan James. He had made no attempt to hide himself. No VPN, no proxy routing, no false trails. When investigators later asked him why, he had a disarming answer. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He was just playing around. January 26, 2000. Department of Defense agents, NASA investigators, and local police arrive at the James family home. They find Jonathan. They seize the computer equipment used in the intrusions. They find everything. 9 months later, in September 2000, Jonathan pleaded guilty to 2 counts of juvenile delinquency. He cooperated fully. His sentence? 6 months in a juvenile detention facility, 7 months of house arrest, probation until age 18, a ban on computers beyond schoolwork, and written letters of apology to NASA and to the United States Department of Defense. He became the first juvenile in American history to be incarcerated for cybercrime. He served his time, and when he got out, he genuinely tried to start over. For a few years, it worked. A small tech business, a low profile, a new start. But the world he'd once existed in, the hacker forums, the IRC channels, the digital underground, had grown much darker and more criminal while he was gone. In 2007, investigators uncovered one of the most ambitious cybercriminal operations in American history. A network of hackers had compromised the payment systems of TJX companies, the retail giant behind TJ Maxx and Marshalls, along with dozens of other major retailers. Stolen the credit and debit card information of over 45 million customers. The eventual ringleader, a Miami hacker named Albert Gonzalez, would receive a 20-year federal prison sentence for the crime. But as investigators worked through the evidence, they found something that led back to a name they already knew. In the federal complaint, investigators listed an unindicted co-conspirator referred to only as JJ. Jonathan James was known, in certain circles, as JJ. The Secret Service executed a second raid on his home. They found nothing connecting him to TJX. No code, no financial trail, no evidence. Jonathan told investigators he had nothing to do with it. He said it clearly and repeatedly. But he had seen what the federal justice system could do. He knew what it felt like to be the target. He understood that innocence and exoneration are not always the same outcome, especially when prosecutors already have your name in their files. His father later told reporters that Jonathan had struggled with depression since his first release from detention, that the second investigation had broken something in him that couldn't be repaired. May 18th, 2008. Jonathan James was found dead at his home. He was 24 years old. He left a suicide note, and beside it, the passwords to all of his accounts. Even at the end, he was leaving things organized. Albert Gonzalez, the actual mastermind of the TJX breach, was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison in 2010. Jonathan James was never charged. His story raises difficult questions about how institutions respond when extraordinary talent crosses legal boundaries, and what happens when those institutions encounter someone a second time, armed with suspicion instead of evidence. NASA's life support systems were accessible to a teenager with a home internet connection, not because Jonathan was uniquely brilliant, but because credentials were being sent in plain text. Because no one had deployed basic intrusion detection. Because no one had imagined the threat could come from a curious kid in Florida. His case became one of the most influential juvenile cybercrime prosecutions in American history. In the years that followed, federal agencies dramatically expanded investment in network security. Cases like Jonathan's made it impossible for institutions to treat digital intrusions as harmless pranks, and accelerated the infrastructure changes that followed. He cracked open a door that an entire industry then had to walk through, and the talent that let him do it had no legitimate outlet in 1999. No bug bounty programs, no ethical hacking certifications, no path from brilliant and restless to recognized and useful. There was just a kid, a keyboard, and a world that didn't know what to do with him. If this story stayed with you, the next video goes deeper. Subscribe. It's worth it.